How do you do? Jen and Cam feel it would be unkind to present this program without a friendly word of warning. We are about to unfold our true crime podcast, a podcast of lifelong friends who seek to examine crimes which were committed without reckoning upon God. The discussion will be frank, and the subject matter will be of a grim and violent nature. I think it will thrill you. It might even horrify you. So, if there are young children listening, or if you feel unwilling to subject your nerves to such a strain, now's your chance to, well, we've warned you.
Well, hello there, Jen.
Hey, Cam, how are you?
I am just doing just fabulous. And you?
Good. I'm doing very well, thank you very
Coming
much.
off a 5-day snow break, it doesn't get any better than that. Let me tell you.
I know.
You gave me time to write up this little case we have today.
You don't even need a spring break anymore. You can just go
Yes, I do.
straight through.
Stop it. Yes, I always do. Stop it. No.
You're just a teacher. It's not like it's hard.
I know, and I need my days off. I'm going to tell you. All right. But those days off, let me dive into this case, and it's a humdinger. It's
All
a
right.
humdinger.
Well, let's hear it. Quit talking about it. Give it to us.
Just quit talking. Okay, here we go. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Today, we are going to the southern United States to a little town called Grassy Creek, North Carolina. It is home to a very well-known and recognized Christmas tree farm. It's January 24th, 2008, right before noon, when a panicked phone call comes into 911 about a most heinous scene at the Hudler tree farm. The man on the phone explains that 2 men have been shot, and that's all he can say. Police are dispatched to the farm, with which they are well acquainted. The farm's actually very popular from that area. In fact, I believe it was one of the top-selling tree farms. But we'll get into that. The farm is located on Charlie Spencer Road, and it is the last road in Ashe County, North Carolina, before entering Virginia. Sheriff James Williams was first to arrive on the scene. Also at the location was Bill Hudler, the youngest son of the Hudler family. He was the one who placed the 911 call. On the driveway is a man on his stomach who has been shot in the head. Bill Hudler tells the sheriff that the man is his older brother, 44-year-old Fred Hudler. Near his body are a pair of house slippers. Now, these don't belong to either man because Fred has a pair of shoes on, but we'll find out how that happened in just a second. As police work the scene, they come across another body on the garage floor. Bill tells investigators that man was the supervisor at the tree farm. He is 25-year-old John Miller, Jr. He, too, is lying on his stomach and has been shot. John had just started working for the family because originally he worked in construction. But you have to remember, the year is 2008, and the housing market had really taken a dive. As investigators look around, they notice in the back of the garage there is a safe that is wide open. In fact, it still has the key in the lock. It becomes clear that these 2 men were killed as part of a robbery, but sadly, they would not be the only 2. Police enter the home. Guns were drawn, unsure of what they would find. Inside, they find 74-year-old patriarch of the Hudler family, Ron Hudler, who happened to be a retired GM employee. When he retired, he began working at the farm along with his sons and family. Police are pretty confused. They don't know who would ever want to hurt this family because everybody they truly loved them. They were well known throughout. The Hudler Tree Farm had been a fixture of the community for generations. In fact, this is so interesting, I thought, one of their trees was picked to be the White House Christmas tree. You know, the great one that they make the big hubbub about. It's a huge honor. The farm was the largest seller of Christmas trees in this year of 2008. The family was adored by everyone, and the workers worked hard on the land to help all the business be the best it could be. The family employed many of the members of the community, so the news hit hard that 2 of the Hudler family members' employees were gunned down so viciously. While the farm has year-round workers, they also had seasonal employees, ones that would often be there only for the work or even just passing through, picking up some extra money. The farm dealt, obviously, it's a tree farm, with a lot of cash, especially during the holiday season. Perhaps someone knew that there would be a lot of cash in that safe, and maybe that person was someone close to the family.
In January, there'd be a lot of money there?
Yeah, still, because they're still collecting stuff or not taking it to the bank. I don't know. It's right after.
Okay.
I would say so. Or people, come and buy stuff, too. As the investigation kicks into gear, a revelation is made. The crime scene was actually in Virginia, not North Carolina, meaning that another police jurisdiction would have to be called in. And that would be Grayson County. As the Grayson County Sheriff's Department steps in, the sheriff, Richard Vaughn, and his team take over. They determined that one of the weapons that was used was a handgun. Now, as a side note, Vaughn had just become sheriff a few weeks earlier, and this triple homicide was, in fact, his first homicide as a new sheriff. Could you imagine?
Hey, trial by fire, right? Literally.
That's big time.
Yeah.
So the team starts with Fred Hudler first. They believe that Fred was shot first. When his father, Ron, heard the gunshots, he went out to investigate. Finding his son, he attempted to help him and was sadly greeted by the killer. The killer then forced Ron back into the house to get the keys to the safe, hence why the keys were actually in the safe. Ron, who was found barefooted, must have left his slippers in the shock of what was going on. He was outside trying to help his son, and the next thing you know, he's got a gun in the back of his head. Was forced inside. John Miller Jr. was killed simply because he was at the scene at the wrong time. He either came during or right after the murders. Next to his body were carpet squares, and those are the carpet squares that you would put in the basement or in a garage, to kind of on a hardwood floor, I guess. And these carpet squares were placed over the blood trail that was on the concrete floor. Investigators made a note of that. They knew something wasn't right, but they wanted to keep looking around, so they kind of filed that in the back of their mind. They believed that the killer had attempted to actually steal the entire safe, and putting it all together, they realized that the person used the carpet squares so that he could drive through the blood and not get blood on the vehicle's tires. Now, if you put all that together, this kind of indicates this isn't like a
spur of the moment, a little planned out. Guy kind of knew what he was doing.
Thought. Yeah, maybe not his first time, not his first rodeo. He did try to load up the safe into his car. That's what they're guessing, or truck rather, but was unable to do so because guess what? Safes are they're a little heavy. I think they're heavy on purpose. So after getting the keys, he did get into the safe, and he took 2 metal gun cases, 2 briefcases containing documents, a small black safe that contained a Tag Heuer. Am I saying that right? A Tag Heuer? Yeah, Tag Heuer watch, and $10,000 in cash. Since the family is so well admired and loved, no one could think of anyone that would want to do them any harm. As is usual, they start looking at those closest to the family and those who may have something to gain before making their way out. This means son Bill Hudler. Officers ask him for his clothing because they wanted analyzed to check for blood splatter and or gunshot residue. At this point, he was so frantic and so upset, I don't think they really believed that he had anything to do with it.
Protocol.
You never know. You never know. We've heard of things like this before, now haven't we? Police are desperate to find the people responsible for this, but they are coming up empty-handed, until a neighbor mentions that they may want to speak with a man named Freddie Hammer. Now, Freddie has a local business there in the area, and it's named Freddie P's Firewood. Freddie P's Firewood. It delivers firewood to the many people in the area, and perhaps he noticed something or someone that was out of the ordinary that day. As the investigation is making its way and collecting it, the police are not able to head over to his house until around 1 a.m. They do get him out of bed, and they talk to Freddie, and Freddie tells officers that he was actually out of the area that day. He was delivering wood in a county pretty far away from Ash. They described it as being the county across the state. I, however, did not look it up, so I'm just taking that it was far away. The following day after the crime, I'm sure the shock was starting to set in, but Bill Hudler remembered something. He reached out to authorities and told them that a truck was missing from the property. Perhaps the killer took the truck for a fast getaway? A bolo, which is a be on the lookout for, went out to all the area police. They were seeking information on the truck, and if anybody came across it, they needed to know as soon as possible. Mm-hmm. I was going to say ASAP, and then I went as soon as possible. So I sounded it out, just like a bolo, right? Sounded it out. Officers located the truck, and it was an employee who had actually asked to borrow the truck the previous day and had been given permission. It was, yeah, that's right, he did. So he was cleared. Again, police are now coming up with nothing. They're kind of, stagnant. Analysis of Bill Hudler's clothes come back clean with no evidence of gunshot residue or blood splatter. He did have a little bit of blood on him, but it was found to believe that he just found his brother and dad. Like it wasn't a splatter as if from a gunshot wound or more like, touching it and hugging it. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Hugging them, rather. Everything changed when they got a tip from somebody that said that they saw Freddie Hammer, Freddie P's firewood,
right,
traveling down the road to the Hudler house the day that the men were shot. Now, interesting that Freddie Hammer failed to mention that he went to the Hudler house that morning and was not exactly out of town at that time like he had stated to the police.
I think you would remember if you were there on the day of a murder.
I would think so. And it's not just a murder. It's a triple murder. Freddie Hammer was, by all accounts, a jovial, happy person. Freddie was active in his church, and he was always seen smiling, humming, singing. Everybody liked him. Freddie had moved to the area just a few years prior, and he had met a lady named Joyce Brenda Blevins, and the two were a match. The two were soon married. Freddie, along with Joyce's nephew, I think they call her Brenda and they call her Joyce, but for the sake, I'm going to call her Joyce. Freddie, along with Joyce's nephew, Jimmy Blevins, started up the firewood company that Freddie still ran to this day. Now, why do you ask that? Sadly, Jimmy had disappeared about 2 years earlier, and no one had heard from Jimmy. Jimmy had an alcohol problem. Most people believe that he just up and took off. He ran off. But Freddie continued to keep the business that the two of them had started up. The Blevins family was so distraught, they worked hard to find out what happened to Jimmy, and they even put up a $15,000 reward for information leading to anything about Jimmy's disappearance.
But they never found him.
Nope. Police soon learned that Freddie has a camper that he kept outside of town at a little campground called Cripple Creek Campground. Officers also know that they need to get in there and they need to see if they can find anything. Maybe there'll be some evidence that would clear him, indicate that anything, right? Because if you have a house and you live in town, but you keep a little camper somewhere else, probably going to want to go, if you're suspicious about that person, you're probably going to want to go check out that area. Am I right?
You would think.
A search warrant is issued, and on December 25th, the police are able to get into Freddie's trailer. As they look around, they can tell someone had recently been inside the trailer, because guess why, Jen? That person had taken a shower. The shower was wet. This was supposed to be out there for the season, so ideally the previous summer. And there's water in the shower. They continue to look around. Outside, they discover a fire pit. And in that fire pit, Jen, there's evidence of clothes being burnt. Why would people burn clothes?
They didn't fit.
That's exactly what I do with mine in the backyard. Yep.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. It is at this point that police believe that if Freddie did the murders, he came back to his trailer to clean up and then burn the clothes. They're starting to maybe think that Freddie may be the guy. As we know, because we do a podcast and we like to pretend like we know what we're talking about, this is a lot of good evidence. However, police, they're going to need more proof. That going to a camper that you own and taking a shower and burning some of your clothes at your place doesn't necessarily make you a murderer. Well, here comes the evidence. So they decide that they need to prove that Freddie ventured from town to the camper and then back into town. So they start going down the road. Questioning stores. And it's not too long before they find a convenience store that has a camera, and the camera actually caught Freddie's truck traveling the road that it would take to get to Cripple Creek. This was around 10 a.m. the day of the murders. It's about an hour after they were killed. Police They're pretty stoked. They're pretty happy. They believe that this is good, but they need more. So guess what? They keep watching the footage, and here we go. A couple hours later, here's Freddy coming back again, heading back into town on that same road with that same camera. Not looking so good, Freddy.
He's in trouble.
Again, Jen, this is a bit suspicious, but it doesn't exactly prove that he killed the 3 men. But you know what is suspicious, Jen? This is where you say what, Cam?
What, Cam?
Officers go over to Freddy's house. They want to have a little chat with him, a little talk. And they're going to bring him into the station. And guess what? Freddy decided to take a little trip to Florida.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. All of a sudden. He apparently is going to deliver a car to his stepfather in Punta Gorda, Florida. Maybe this was pre-planned? Maybe.
I don't think so.
You never know. We don't know what Freddy doing. I don't know. But that's okay. Police are going to handle it. The Grassy Creek authorities contacted the U.S. Marshal Service, who then went in and arrested Freddie Hammer. He was extradited back to Virginia the following day. Freddie was going to have a lovely, long stay in the New River Valley Jail until his trial. Freddie was adamant that he had nothing to do with the Christmas Tree Farm murders. Okay, Freddie. Okay, that's fine. But guess what? While you're in jail, we're still going to monitor your calls coming in and out and your mail, just to see if anything happens.
Due diligence.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Freddie's denial is about to become harder to believe as police locate his firewood truck tucked away, mind you, in a garage of one of his family members. Why are you hiding your truck in there, Freddie? On the back of the truck is a single smidge of red paint. It's like a little blob, if you will. Mm-hmm. Now, that color paint was the same red paint that the safe happened to be at the farm. When authorities, I think so, quinky dink. When authorities measured the truck, meaning the size of it and the safe, they did determine that the safe could fit in there, no problem. But the problem is, safes are really heavy, especially for one person. The weight of the safe and the way it was done with the 3 people killed, at first, authorities were positive that this had to be more than one person. But it's becoming a little bit more clear that maybe one person did do this all. So they took that red spot on the truck and they measured it against the safe. And it turns out that good old Freddy had tried to get that safe in the back of his truck and he failed. So trying to shove it into the truck, the paint went on his truck, made a little indentation and left a little paint chip, but it also damaged the safe. It was a perfect match. Like, the spot on the truck and the spot on the safe. Not looking good, Freddy. Another little tidbit about what's going on is Freddy's cell phone log. It seems that Freddy had called the secretary at the tree farm just 2 days before the killings. He wanted to know if Ron was home. Was he in town? The secretary told Freddy that actually Ron was out of town and he was going to be out of town for the week. He was going to be out for a while. So Freddy, at this point, knows or believes he can get there early in the morning, get in that garage, and get the safe and not run into anybody. It's all good. But that's not true because Ron returned home early. But what would be discovered next would leave no one guessing about Freddy's guilt or innocence. It seems like a corrections officer was cleaning up the cell that another inmate was in, and he happened to find a note. Now, just like us, Jen, because this made me laugh, I was like, of course the guy's going to read it. So would I. Are you kidding me? Hello?
Damn straight I would.
They're nosy, just like we are. The note was written by an inmate who had penned a letter to his girlfriend. In the letter, the man tells his girlfriend, hey, babe, I'm ad-libbing here a little bit, right? But, hey, babe, I'm going to be getting out soon, and I found a way to get us some money. This guy, and the guy, by the way, was Freddy, who's in here with me, wants me to go do a little something for him. All I have to do is go to this place called Cripple Creek, where there's a barn. And I got to go in the barn, and I got to collect these 2 guns. Oh, and I got to dig up a bag of money. Oh. To make it even better, Freddy had drawn a map for this inmate. A nice little map, so that the man would have no problems finding the spot.
This inmate was something else, huh?
I tell you, you can't make that up. Really? Thank you for the map, Freddy. It's going to make life so much easier for us investigators. Police head out to Cripple Creek, map in hand, just like Freddy offered. Officers come across the $10,000. It's buried. They have to they had to dig it up by a shovel. No problem, though. They got it. And apparently, Freddy, because he's generous like that, was going to keep $8,000 and give this inmate $2,000. That's why him and his girlfriend would have money, because they're going to have $2,000 for helping. I'm sure that's complicit in a crime. I don't know. I don't know what the charge would be, but I think you're going to need more than $2,000.
A bit.
Nearby, just like the instructions, there was some fencing wire. So it's the wire, like the rollout wire that you would do for a fence. And in the center,
like chicken wire?
Kind of, yeah. Mm-hmm. In the center of it was, just like Freddy said, a .22 Magnum rifle. Nearby, they found a .44 Magnum pistol. Those were the two guns. There is no disputing that Freddie Hammer was the person responsible for the triple murders with all this evidence. Given this, Freddie agreed to a plea deal. Of course he did. Of course he did. The deal would require Freddie to tell investigators just what happened the day the three men were murdered. Freddie informs officers that morning he went to the farm to steal the safe and assumed that no one would be there. Remember, he called the secretary who said Ron was out of town, and it was pretty early in the morning. He then backed his truck up to the garage. He would get inside, load the safe into the back of his truck, and be on his way. But the safe was a lot heavier than he thought. Oh, and the house was not empty. As Freddie was attempting to load the safe, John Miller and Fred Hudler come out to see what the commotion was. What's going on out there? It's loud. I mean, he just pulled up a truck and all this stuff's going on in the garage. Freddie panics and he shoots John Miller first and then chases Fred Hudler out of the garage and onto the driveway where he shoots Fred. Ron, the father, inside hears all this. The gunshots are quite loud. He runs outside. He sees his son in the driveway. Ron bends over, is trying to help his son. Freddie then comes up behind Ron, forces him up and into the house. He's demanding the key to the safe. Ron was begging Freddie, do whatever you want, just let me call 911 for my son. I need to get my son help. Instead, Freddie killed him with one shot. Freddie was not... this guy is a terrible person. I'm sorry, but he is. Am I sorry? I'm not even sorry. He's a terrible person. And here we go. Freddie was not at all remorseful for these killings, but what the police don't know yet was that Freddie truly is a wolf in sheep's clothing. While all of the town loved him, he was a totally different person. In an offer to take the death penalty out of the equation, Freddie agrees to give them information. This information, Jen, would be more than shocking. Put on your seatbelt.
It would
ready?
Be extra shocking.
It's going to be super duper shocking. Prosecutors agree to the deal. Freddie Hammer tells authorities that he knows what happened to his nephew, Jimmy Blivens. And he knows what happens because he did it. As if that's not bad enough, Freddie, get this, wants part of that reward money that the Blivens family set up for information regarding Jimmy. Now, remember, Freddie is married to
Joyce,
Jimmy's aunt. That is his wife. Jimmy's dad is his wife's brother. He wants part of this money, and he wants it to be set up in an account for his step-granddaughter. What? So essentially, he is blackmailing them. I'm going to tell you what happened to Jimmy and where his body is, but in exchange for that, you're going to give me the reward money. So you're going to pay him for killing him. Okay.
I don't think that's legal.
You would think
you can't profit off your crimes.
Prosecutors comply, and they put the money in an account. Yep. Freddie tells them where they can find Jimmy. According to most of the sources that I found, it seems that Jimmy was owed some money for working for Freddie, and Freddie did not want to pay Jimmy that money. So instead, Freddie just killed Jimmy and placed him in a landfill in Ashe County. Now, this is his wife's nephew. Keep that in mind. It's terrible. Investigators go to the landfill, and just as Freddie described, they located the body of his nephew. Thankfully, the court would make Freddie return the money to that family, the reward money, of course. So that was a plea just to get him to say it. Thank you.
They pacified him by doing that.
But when I first read that, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, I thought this cannot be real. Freddie would plead guilty to the murder of Jimmy Blevins. Oh, and that amount of money that Freddie owed Jimmy, you want to take a guess? I mean, it was astounding. A lot.
Like, it was a lot? Like $50?
No, it was more than that. $1,600. $1,600. So not even $2,000. And you kill your nephew? Really?
Well, $1,600 is a lot to some people. So
it's not that much.
Not enough to kill somebody, that's for sure.
I did find some differing reasons for the murder of Jimmy. Mostly the ones I stumbled across, was that Jimmy was owed money. However, this was interesting, so I wanted to include it. One source said that it was all about the money and that Jimmy was, in fact, seeking a lawyer to recoup that money. And that pissed Freddy off because he's like, after everything I've done for you, you're going to come sue me for $1,600. But then there's also this little tidbit, and that was that they believe Jimmy had known about some, how shall we say this, another murder that Freddy was involved in, and Jimmy was using that as leverage. You either give me the money or I'm going to go to the authorities about this other murder that you're involved in. But in any case, Freddy killed his nephew Jimmy. There was a witness, which I believe was Jimmy's grandmother, and she testified that she saw Jimmy get into Freddie P's firewood car and they took off. Inside, Jimmy left the TV on, and his food was still cooking in the crock pot, meaning he planned to come back.
Mm-hmm.
Police can hardly believe that Freddie Hammer, the one that the community loved, did all these awful murders. But they're grateful that he has allowed those that were affected by these gruesome murders to get some closure. But wait, there's much more to the story. Isn't there always, Jen?
There always
Isn't there always? It is October 13th, 1968 in Philadelphia, when an 18-year-old man was hitchhiking. The man would be picked up by a gentleman named Charles Effelman, who just also happened to be an off-duty police officer in Philly. Mr. Effelman was heading home from hanging out at a local restaurant. It was only minutes later that Mr. Effelman would be fatally bashed in the back of the head by a 4x4. The young man that he picked up, the hitchhiker, stole his wallet, dumped his body, and made a getaway in the man's own vehicle. It was approximately an hour later that officers pulled over the car for speeding. Now, the person driving, the man, the hitchhiker, at first denied even knowing Mr. Effelman, but kind of goes out the window when, you're driving his car.
Yeah.
So the young man, said, okay, he came up with the story, and the story would change over time, but we'll get to that. The young man had told the state troopers that he was picked up by Mr. Effelman, and when they were driving, the man started to get sick, so they pulled over where he could exit the vehicle and vomit. And when he was throwing up, the young hitchhiker said that he wanted to help the older man, Jen. He wanted to make sure he didn't lose consciousness, so he smacked him in the face.
Oh, good. Mm-hmm. That's so nice of him.
Right? Mr. Effelman, shocked, punched the young man, which prompted him to get the board and hit Mr. Effelman. It was all in self-defense, Jen. It was simply self-defense. He did admit to taking the man's wallet, which had $200 in it. And of course, he kept that. So he did steal $200 from the wallet.
Well, what are you going to do? Right? It's there. He's not going to use it. He's unconscious.
Well, he's dead now. He's dead. But yeah. The story would once again change when the young man stood trial for the death of Mr. Effelman. The man, with his all-American good looks, which personally I didn't think he was that good looking, but everybody said he was good looking, would tell the jury, who happened to be all female, that he simply got freaked out when this much older off-duty police officer made a sexual advance on him. It scared him, and that's why he killed the officer. This young boy who's 18 with an all-female jury.
Who claimed that he was attractive.
However, not everybody bought all this, thank goodness. The judge on the trial was a man by the name of Robert A. Latrone, and he was audibly mistrusting of the young man's testimony, and he would often question him on the stand as if he were the prosecutor. Now, this would all lead to the defense attorneys to cry that it was prejudicial. He just wasn't buying it, and as a judge, I guess you're supposed to sit there, and he was like, what? You guys are buying this? And he would ask questions and so forth. When the jury got his trial, it took them 30 minutes to convict him of the lesser third-degree murder. Judge Latrone eventually imposed a sentence of 7.5 to 15 years in prison, which was, mind you, less than the 10 to 20 years the prosecution wanted for the man. Now, a little tidbit in here, and I didn't write this in here, I just remembered it. They decided to acquit him of the stealing of the $200 because if they didn't acquit him of that, that would have been a much more, death in the commission of a felony, and that he could have faced death. So they didn't want that to happen, so they acquitted him of that.
They didn't want him to do a
longer sentence, basically, but that's important, and I'm going to tell you about that in just a second because it comes up again. Now, of course, the case was appealed, and it was all appealed based on the fact that they believed that the judge his conduct was unfair, and it was prejudicial. The case would actually go all the way to the state Supreme Court, who agreed that the judge's actions had been prejudicial. The case was overturned along with the conviction in June 1985. The young man would go back to court once more, but this time he would be acquitted. The young man eventually got away with murder and was released in November 1987. This man was none other than Freddie Hammer, and even though they didn't know it at the time, the justice system just allowed a serial killer to walk free. Now, to go back to the money thing, if somebody dies while you're committing a robbery, it's a felony, and they die by that, you are eligible, and I believe this is correct, and I'm sure somebody will correct me if I'm not wrong. That makes it capital murder, therefore you could get the death penalty. But they didn't want that to happen. So when they took that out and they acquitted him of that evidence was not, they couldn't present that in the second trial. Had they, he might not have been acquitted. Does that all make sense? They might have, it would have proved that possibly he killed a man for $200. The motive was altogether robbery. It wasn't sexual advances, or it wasn't a punch in the face. And that's why that's important. Although the court was seemingly done with Freddie wasn't done with the wife of the man he killed, Joan Effelman. Now, mind you, that many, many years have passed. On February, and this is how you have to get into his mind and think, what is what you have to think, okay? On February 14th, 2007, he up and called Joan Effelman at home. It had been nearly 30 years since Freddie took the life of her husband, and Freddie seemed to want to talk to her about it. Now, could you imagine if your husband was killed and the killer calls you almost 30 years later and wants to talk to you?
No. He's
exactly
got some cojones to do that, that's for sure.
Sure does. Freddie goes on to tell Joan that all those things that he set up on that trial, lies. They were lies. Like the policeman hitting him, didn't happen. Did he hit on him? Didn't happen either. He wanted to know if Joan would forgive him. No, Joan was kind of like, yeah, I don't really know if that's going to be in the cards for you, but okay. It was nearly 2 weeks after that phone call. You okay?
Yeah, I'm just like, that's some gall. I mean, really, what a horrible.
He asked for the reward money for killing his nephew.
I know, but to call, no.
Putting this all together, I think he was getting I don't know what he was doing. However,
he wanted forgiveness.
But he's about to do something else. That's the whole point. And I don't know in his head if it was starting to take place. He was starting to think about it. So then he called the first one. Maybe in his head, he thought, if I can get, forgiven for the first one, then I can be cleared to do more. I don't know. I don't know what's going through the man's head. However, it's nearly 2 weeks after that phone call that Freddie picked up his nephew, Jimmy, and drove off. Jimmy would never be seen alive again. Authorities would bring Freddie in right after this happened, and they brought him in for questioning. And even though they were pretty sure he knew something or was responsible for Jimmy's disappearance, they couldn't prove it. They had to let him walk. So at this point, Jen, I know I'm sure you're thinking the same thing because you just kind of voiced it. You're kind of thinking like investigators are going to be sitting there with mouths wide open and thinking, is all of this true? But guess what? Oh, there's more. There's much more. Mm-hmm. Freddie Hammer told them that he was also responsible for the disappearance of a 29-year-old lady named Julie Lovett, who was last seen on March 21st, 2001. Freddie informs police that at that time, in March, Julie was dating his son. Freddie claims that he received a phone call during the evening of April 21st, 2001, and it was a phone call asking Freddie to come and pick up Julie from a bar near Mountain City, North Carolina. Apparently, the son and Julie had gotten into a fight, so wanted Freddie to come. Julie wanted to leave. Freddie went and picked up Julie and went back to Ashe County, where he murdered her and hid her body. Now, that's really all they know. There's not much more on this in terms of validity, meaning if it's true, or motive. It's never been solved. According to an article written in the Tomahawk paper, Sheriff Williams, who I mentioned right at the top, said that he's not even really sure it's true or not. He notes that Freddie likes to see his name appear in the paper, and he's actually misled officers before. He added Freddie likes to play mind games and will give false information to lead officers on a wild goose chase. Williams also said that he has no idea why Freddie would confess to a crime if he didn't commit it, and these confessions, if false, cause more harm to the families that are already hurting. Currently, Julie's case, as I stated, remains unsolved.
I don't think he really cares if he hurts people, emotionally hurts them.
You know who he doesn't care about hurting? Tim Shatley. Here's the case of Tim Shatley.
Oh, nice.
30-year-old Tim Shatley was shot on November 19th, 2005. And it was about 11:25 that they believe it happened. 11:30, a call comes in stating that there had been a vehicle crash. There had been an accident. Now, Tim was on his way home from his first day of work on a new job. He was traveling in his van in North Carolina on Highway 16 and Old Field Creek Road. He was shot. His vehicle then crashed into a concrete barrier and came to a stop. The Ashe County Sheriff's Office received a call reporting an accident near the bridge. When help arrived, they found Tim shot in the van. Several bullet holes had appeared and pierced his van. Freddie takes credit for this murder, and there's little to no evidence to prove it either way. A witness did come forward and say that night they saw a white Ford Explorer nearby, but that's the only lead they ever received. They still don't really know if he did it or not. He claims he did, but again, like Sheriff Williams said, why would you claim it if you didn't? Unless, right. But he does seem to have a little information about things, but usually his stories don't match altogether. Like there's inconsistencies, which leaves officers to believe that, I guess, to not really be sure. Interesting to note here, Tim Shatley was killed just a few yards from the trailer where Jimmy Blivens lived. Little connection there. Did he know Tim? Did he know that area? Was he just driving past? He shot him? Maybe he didn't do it. Maybe he read it in the news. So, yeah. Now, at this point, you're wondering if good old Freddy did this confessing out of the goodness of his cold, black heart,
no.
Jen.
No, he doesn't do anything.
Yes, that's correct. Thank you. Sheriff Williams said that Hammer divulged all this in exchange for 4 things he wanted. Freddie wanted the death penalty taken off the table.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, he wanted the Blivens and the Shatley cases to run concurrently with the time he received in the Grayson County Christmas tree murders, should he be charged with those as well. One, by the way, he will be. The Shatley one, he was never charged for. Next, he wanted to see and talk to his wife, Brenda Joyce Brenda. And lastly, he wanted to be placed in a prison close to their home. So just mulling this all over, if your husband killed your brother's kid, that's the first thing I want to do is go see my husband that killed my nephew, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But of course, he got his wishes. He got them all, although I don't really believe he should have. But hey, that's just me. Frederick Phillip Hammer was sentenced to 7 life sentences without the possibility of parole and is serving his time at the Wallen Ridge State Prison for the role in these murders. He would be charged with the 3 Christmas tree murders, the Hudlers, and also then Jimmy Blivens. Little footnote to all of this. In total, Freddy, who liked to brag, claims he murdered 17 people. Now, authorities are still not really sure if this is accurate, but insist that the information that they have been given has been investigated, but without further evidence or clues to go on, they're kind of at a standstill. He was never charged for Tim's murder. He was never charged for Julie's murder. He was charged for Jimmy's murder. The family of Jimmy Blivens was awarded $14.9 million in a civil judgment, $3.74 million in compensatory damages, and $11.22 million in punitive damages that would go to Jimmy Blivens' father, David Blivens. he liked to do notes. Remember, he provided the map and the note. And he told his roommate who wrote that, and he just liked to talk. So while Freddy was in custody, many notes and letters were discovered and written by Freddy over the years. He referred to his crimes as bad habits. He babbled on about
it is a bad habit. He's not lying.
Yeah. Like biting your fingernails or chewing gum.
Killing people.
He babbled on in these letters that he believed he could still get into heaven and being judged by God, but he knows that he is where he belongs, which is in prison. The letters were rambling and indicated that he held himself in high self-esteem. Of course he did, high esteem. And seemed to enjoy the power and control he held over people, especially the authorities. And that is the case of Freddie Hammer. And you need to look it up because I don't know. So he says that he committed his first murder at 16 and then 17 throughout. But if you read what the officer says in the interviews, I don't know.
It seems like they kind of believe him, but there's really nothing that they have. They don't have.
They're just not
proof.
Sure
They don't even have.
He obviously
evidence.
Killed some people. So if you're going to kill 5, counting the police officer that he got acquitted from, that's 5 right there. So what's the difference?
He's already a serial killer, but it looks better if got 17.
And that was one thing that the authorities said too, that they wondered if this. And it went with his personality that he's like macho and he's like wants that prison, the credentials in prison to be all this. And then part of me started thinking that this would be like if he had the ability to listen to this podcast in prison, that would be right up his alley because he'd like to see his name in the papers.
He's a narcissist.
Yes. So that is the story of Freddie Hammer. Not a nice person.
Freddie Hammer.
That would be correct.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah, it's, I don't know. There's a lot. And Julie.
And he got off when they were doing his trial when he was 18 with the police officer, if they mentioned his good looks or whatever, that really got him off there.
Well, I think it mentioned altar boy good looks with an all-female jury. That's how the tagline was or whatever. And I was like, so of course I immediately go look him up. I'm like, he's not very cute. But by all standards, as a young man, I don't know what he looked like at 18, but I don't care how cute you are at 18. That doesn't give you don't get to murder. But I kept thinking too, because, I too have an 18-year-old and an all-female jury. Also in my head, I couldn't help thinking of the mom in me, and that would play to his defense as well, right? That he's just a young man. He's just a young boy. They like to call he didn't know what he was doing.
Boys, but teen girls are women.
Yeah, it's true. Mm-hmm. So interesting. Look it up. I'm going to cite all the articles I got on this from a TV show. That's how I found my stuff. And then they kind of dabbled in a little bit of that. And then when I looked them up and I was like, whoa, there's more to this. There's a lot more to this. Woo!
Yeah, he's
so, and I didn't know that Christmas trees, because of course I went down that rabbit hole. They are pretty darn profitable.
They're very profitable.
I had no idea.
Uh-huh. No,
so I was going to include all those stats, and that's how I was going to open this. And I was like, nobody's going to want to know. Nobody's going to want to know that. Mm-hmm. So I didn't. But yeah. So that is the story of Freddie P. Firewood Hammer and his despicable reign of terror.
And poor Jimmy's family. They'll never see money. Not that that's their big thing. They'd rather have Jimmy back. But.
And I didn't even include this. He got in trouble for money and had filed bankruptcy a couple times. He got in trouble for writing bad checks. So he didn't have money anyway. And that's, I guess he was mad.
Awarded the family $1 billion or maybe even 50 and they'd never see it.
Exactly.
So, yeah, that's a shame.
Mm-hmm. So that is it. What, you've been watching anything good on TV? Anything I need to know about?
I did finish the Inventing Anna. We talked about that last time, didn't we? Mm-hmm. But no, I haven't. I've been reading a book for next week's episode. And there's a lot more to it than I remember. So
yeah. Well, this morning, this is kind of interesting. Okay, so I woke up early, as I do, and I had to finish this episode, but I like to drink my Diet Coke and watch a little TV in the morning. And on Sundays, a lot of times I check and watch the 2020 from the night before. Imagine my interest, Jen, when I'm watching it, and this lady, killed her family from Missouri. I'm like, what? I have not heard of this. I don't know if you have either. And maybe we'll reach out and do a case on it. But this lady, Springfield, Missouri,
All the weird things happen in Springfield, Missouri.
I'm telling you, poisoned her husband, then poisoned her son, then poisoned her daughter, had 2 daughters left, was going to kill the baby too before they caught her. I
read this. Yeah. I know this one.
And I don't want to give it away because maybe we'll do something on it. But this lady is so, let's put it this way. At the end, the one girl that she poisoned, so the husband died, the son died, and the daughter almost died, but has such severe brain damage, she is going to need lifelong care. So they show her a picture of her daughter, who she hasn't seen forever, and said, just so you know, here's your daughter. This is what she looks like today. She's living at this healthcare facility. The first words out of this lady's mouth, I was like, you've got to be kidding. You know what she said? Oh, she's gained weight. That is the first thing she said. Your poor daughter is like, she had to relearn to talk, to walk. Like, her brain damage from the antifreeze, it's permanently damaged her.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's...
Piece of shit human.
I can't believe a mother would ever say that about their child, but then you're sitting in prison? There's no words. I don't even know what to say. And I can't give the rest of it away because, like I said, maybe we'll do it. But so that's how I started my day today. Check it out.
Lovely.
2020.
I
think it's called Home Sweet Murder. I think that's the name of the episode on 2020. Yep.
Yeah, she's charming.
Here's another little thing that I think is hilarious in my head, because you gotta live in my head with me sometimes, know what's going on. Inventing Anna, when she was in prison, Julia Garner had those super cute, thick, black prison issued glasses. And I was like, those are so cute on her. I would like to get a pair of those. Then today I see them on this lady and I was like, those are awful. So then it made me realize it's really, if you're, it's
the person, not the glasses.
It's the person, not the glasses. Yeah. And I got another story for you, and then I'll shut up because you'll appreciate this, because even my kid was laughing at me. So I decided I need some new shoes, running shoes, sneakers, whatever. I'm not running, but just tennis shoes. So I was like, walking shoes, not even like just wear around the house shoes. Let's be honest. Okay. So I go on Amazon and I was like, I'm just going to order some Nikes, right? And so I see some Nike Airs and I ordered them. And then I see these other Nikes and they're so ugly. They're cute. So I was like, I'll get those too. So I get them. They come in the mail last night and I'm laughing in the kitchen. My son walks in. He goes, what are you laughing at? I go, my new shoes. Look at them. And he goes, what are those? And I was like, well, I thought it was Nike Airs, but you look at it because they look like they're Nike Airs. But then you look at the tongue of the shoe and it says running. So they're running Airs. They're not Nikes. But it gets better. The other shoes that are so ugly that they're cute, and I thought they were Nikes. So it has like ribbons around the shoe. And I thought it was just do it, right? Because that's what, that's
their slogan. Yeah.
You know what it is? Just so. They're not Nikes either.
Wow.
Just so. So anyway, my son was laughing. He's like, Mom, are you going to keep those? I go, well, yeah, now I am. I think it's kind of funny. I got my just so Nike knockoffs in my.
It's almost like they know your athletic ability.
No, I was like,
just so.
Yeah, terrible. Just so. But if you look at, if you wear them, you're going to think they're Nikes, and then you get up there and you're like, wait, what does that say? Because it kind of goes in and out of the shoe, so you got to kind of look, but it does not say.
Funny.
Just do it.
That's funny. Well, tonight I do know that I am watching, and I'm sure you will too, the new season of Forensic Files 2.
Yes, I will be. Of course I will be.
Season.
Probably I'll wait and do it first thing in the morning. I like to watch TV before I get ready for school too.
Yeah.
I know. No judge. Don't judge me. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. I'll be watching that this evening. And another thing I want to talk about is the True Crime Podcast Festival.
Whoop, whoop.
It's going to be in Dallas.
You think you like us on air? Wait till you meet us in person.
Come see us. It's be August 26th, I believe. 26th, 27th, somewhere around there. We will.
I haven't asked off for school yet, but it's okay.
Oops,
I'll make it happen. We
will be there, and so will probably some of your other favorite podcasters will be there.
It's super fun. I do have to say.
A lot of fun. We had a blast last year, and there wasn't a lot of people that showed up, but we had a lot of fun.
It's just fun to hang out with people that
Jen
you don't know.
Rye was there. Josh from True Crime Bullshit was there. He's so much fun. Bob Ruff was there. Charlie from Crime Lines. Nina from Already Gone. There was Bob from the Defense Diaries. He's got it's fairly new podcast on John Wayne Gacy. Our friend Eric from True Consequences.
That's what I was going to say.
Consequences. And I know for sure Lainey from True Crime Fan Club's going to be there. She's actually planning this whole thing. And she is a doll if you haven't met her yet. But honestly, you guys all need to come.
True Crime Rhymes with Vodka podcast. Those ladies are adorable. They're so cute. I love them, and they're fun, and they're nice, and super fun.
Extremely fun time. You get to meet all your favorite podcasters. At least go to the True Crime Podcast Festival website, and new podcasts are being announced all the time, and we will keep you
fun
on who's all
It's very chill and laid back. It's good. It's a good time. Head by all.
Yep. So come on down if you can. Nice little weekend away.
Come on down to Texas.
We'd love to meet you. Anything else for us?
Well, we do have a promo from our friends from the Coffee and Cases podcast. It's Allison and Leslie. And check out their promo here and give them a listen. Give them a little shout out. Give them a little love, if you will. And that's it. That's all I got for you this week, Jen.
All right.
Remember, lock your doors.
And keep passing by those open windows.
Bye-bye.
Love ya.
Today's episode was researched and written by me, Cam. For more information about this episode, as well as all the sources I used, please check out our show notes or the podcast website at ourtruecrimepodcast.com. Our True Crime Podcast is developed and created by hosts Jen and Cam. Original music and audio mix of all our True Crime Podcast episodes is courtesy of Nico Vertesi from We Talk of Dreams. Listener discretion is provided by Edward October from October Pod VHS. Our True Crime Podcast is executive produced by Nico Vertesi and Dick Vane. Make sure to like and subscribe to Our True Crime Podcast wherever you listen to your podcast. We can be reached on Instagram and Facebook at Our True Crime Podcast or on Twitter at Our True Crime Pod. You can email us at ourtruecrimepodcast@gmail.com. If you really like the show, make sure to check out our Patreon at Our True Crime Podcast. Our True Crime Podcast is an OTC production.
Greetings from the Bluegrass State.
That's Kentucky, if y'all didn't know.
We want to tell you about the hottest new podcast on the block, Coffee and Cases. If you fancy yourself an at-home detective,
If you find yourself yelling at the TV during that new true crime documentary,
then you, my friend, are a certified sleuth hound.
just like us.
On Coffee and Cases podcast, you'll hear about the missing, the murdered, and the unsolved.
But the cases you've rarely, if ever, heard about.
All from the perspective of two teacher friends, rule followers, and self-proclaimed scaredy cats. Join me, Allison,
And me, Maggie.
each week as we take on cases that are often overlooked, but are screaming for justice.
Finally, a true crime podcast where you don't have to monitor the foul language.
Coffee and Cases is a true crime guilty pleasure that you don't actually have to feel guilty about. Check out Coffee and Cases every Thursday for a new episode on your favorite podcasting app.
Cement.
Yeah, that's why I said it like that. I didn't mean to, though.
Okay.
That's because I say it like that all the time to make fun of it. Sorry, a little iced tea.
We're going down by the cement pond.
That's right. It's because our listeners abroad enjoy our fine pronunciation of things. That is said with sarcasm. Okay, here we go.
Hopefully they're not using us as grammar lessons.
Oh, please don't. Could you imagine? I learned all I need to know about the American language from my friends Jen and Cam. Boy,
I learned it real good.
I learned it real good.
Mm-hmm.
Freddie Hammer was, by all accounts, a jovial, happy person. Cracked me up because when I did my Grammarly check on this, it told me to change the word jovial because maybe my audience would not be familiar with that word. That made me laugh.
Trust me, I wouldn't. I know.
Do you know what I mean? I laughed. I was like, I think most people know.
Sorry, side note, swill. People did not know the word swill on Wordle.
Really? Well, I know people didn't know trove. And I was like, a treasure trove? Hasn't anybody said that? I don't know. It just made me laugh. But I guess Grammarly kind of is for like high school and maybe college, right? And I don't know. But it made me laugh. Anyway. Cripple Creek Campground. I kept singing.
Cripple Creek, going in a whirl, going up Cripple Creek to see my girl.
I was singing the other. Cripple Creek, is it, I'm sorry. Up on Cripple Creek, I'm trying. Do you know who I'm talking? That song
I
from
know
like
that one.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that one.
Going up Cripple Creek to have a little fun. Going up Cripple Creek, going in a run. Something like that.